Right. Hello. Welcome to episode 8 of the ReptiChat podcast. I hope all you listeners are doing well. Nice to see lots of people in the chat to start off this morning. So, hello, everybody. Hope you guys are all well as well. I just want to say thank you for the support in the last few episodes. I know they've been a bit out of schedule, but it's nice to see that everyone is still coming and listening, which is really cool. Um, so, yeah, happy with that. Just before we start today, I want to take a quick minute or two just to talk about the Exotic Keeper magazine giveaway. If you're watching, you can see that on screen now. If you're not, um, if you're listening on the audio only, Exotic Keeper magazine have very kindly partnered up with me. They're not giving me any money or anything. It's just solely so I can give you guys some stuff back. So to win the prize, so to speak, is a 12-month digital subscription to the Exotic Keeper magazine online. So you can access every single issue from issue 1 all the way through to the current issue, all digital format. For a whole year, which is really cool. They're really, really good magazines as well. All you need to do is go in the comments below on YouTube and leave a animal fact. It doesn't need to be anything specific, just a random fact about animals, and I'll pick one each episode, and you will win a 12-month subscription. It's really that easy. So yeah, we are back on schedule now. So you obviously had an episode last week and an episode today, and then we'll be back to every fortnight. So that's that. My brain's not really working much today. I've got a bit of a cold still. So I apologise if I'm sniffy. I'll try not to be. If anybody has a guest that they'd like to have on, I reckon they would be good on the podcast, or a topic that they would like to hear on the podcast, let me know, and I'll see if I can find a guest for it. Talking of guests, we will move on. So today's guest, you may have seen him on Instagram, you may have seen him on his YouTube channel, or he has also been a guest on other podcasts around as well. So without any further ado, we are going to get Andrew from Riddler Reptiles. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How you doing? All right?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. Sorry if I'm sounding a bit bunged up. I suffer. I don't know if I'm ill still, or if it's hay fever or what.
No, you're good, mate. No
We'll
worries. As
crack
long
on
as
with
can
it.
you hear me? Am I all good?
You sound fantastic, mate.
Ideal. Ideal.
So yeah, thank you very much for coming on today.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's been one that we've been you've been in the books for a little while, and we finally found a date that suits both of us. So and it just so happens that I can't read the calendar, so it works perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think Paul is already in the chat.
Paul has been talking to me all day about it as well. I think he's quite excited about this one, so it's nice to see him there.
He is, but I sort of accidentally snaked him a bit. He was meant to be coming round today for us to do some collabs, and he was going to meet Ragnar and blah, blah, blah. And then I put up a thing, obviously, saying 20th of May, tune in, I'll be on the ReptiChat podcast. And he went, oh, the same day as me. And I went, oh, God. But to be fair,
he says he's leaving, so well, it's nice for you to join in, Paul. We'll see you next time, mate.
Appreciate that, mate. But yeah, no, all good, mate. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no worries. So, if you haven't listened before, I like to start the podcast with a section called "Get to Know." It's a few like quickfire questions. Just breaks the ice a little bit, and it's something I like to do to start off with. So we'll do this, and then we'll crack on. I have got notes as well because my brain's just not working today. So,
yeah, you're good.
First thing that comes into your head. We don't need long-winded answers because we'll get deep into it shortly.
Cool.
All right. So, if you're ready,
ready when you are, mate.
First exotic.
Leopard gecko.
Current number of exotics.
It's in the 30s.
Nice. Favorite species you're currently keeping?
Varanus rudicolis. Nice. My roughneck monitor lizard.
Brilliant. Most unusual species that you're currently keeping?
Probably him as well, to be fair.
I think they're sort of interchangeable questions, actually. I ask a lot of people the same answer. Money, space, time, legality, no issue at all. What's one animal you'd like to keep?
Ooh, that's a good question. Legalities as well. Are we talking reptiles or just animals in general?
Anything living in the world.
I want a leopard.
Nice. Okay, just like a bog standard, or we took like a normal leopard, clouded leopard, like
probably just a nice big standard sort of like an amur leopard or something like that. Would be quite
really cool, actually.
Yeah, that or a jaguar because they got massive heads.
Nice. And then moving away from the animals just for a minute, this is like a this or that. So pretty straightforward. So beach or mountains?
Beach.
Sun or snow?
Sun all day, every day.
Nice. Vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
Night in, night out?
Night in.
Early bird, night owl, or permanently exhausted pigeon?
Permanently exhausted pigeon.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. Cool. So that's that section over. Like I said, it's just a nice little way to get into the podcast, and it gets us going.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll dive straight into it, really. So, I know a bit about you, but there's lots of people listening, or hopefully there's lots of people listening that don't know too much. So, can you give us a brief history of your reptile keeping career? Sort of like, how did you start? When did you start? And it doesn't need to be that brief, but I don't know how to say like an in the middle brief history.
Yeah, no, you're cool. Well, I always liked reptiles. I never really got to keep any when I was younger because the parents weren't massive fans of reptiles.
Yeah.
In the end, I managed to convince them for me to get a singular leopard gecko. So that was my first ever reptile. Built the enclosure, all that. I have admitted to it before, but again, like I've said before, it's okay to make mistakes if you're willing to learn from them. I ended up cohabbing and keeping them with a red heat lamp. Please don't hurt me. I don't do that
I've been
anymore.
there as well.
But the thing is, I saw from that moment that how addictive it could be, because I had those leopard geckos, and a few weeks later, I went into the reptile shop to get some bugs or something. And the guy got a crested gecko out, and I went home and I went, "Oh, I might get a crested gecko." My parents went, "You've already got a gecko. Would it go in the same cage?" And I said, "No, they're different from different areas." And they just looked at me and went, "No, you've got leopard geckos. You're not having it." And I was like, "All right, you just wait until I move out."
It is that easy though, isn't it? It's really that straightforward.
It is, because then they hit you. They're like, "Oh, today we're running a deal. We've got the full setup and the animal for X amount of money."
It's dangerous if you have like a local pet shop as well, because you tend to become friends with the owners, and then like they do good deals for you, and then you come home with all sorts of stuff you were never planning on having.
Well, I did have a good relationship with. So obviously, I live in Devon now,
Yep.
And I've got a lot of reptiles now. I did have a good relationship with my local reptile shop, to the point that I actually bought into the reptile shop, and then it ended up that they scammed me out of a lot of money. So it turns out that we weren't that good friends that I thought. That's a whole nother story, maybe for the future. But yeah, be careful, ladies and gents, because people sometimes are just out for your money. But with that being said, when we were friends, I ended up starting with royal pythons, a couple of bearded dragons. I still to this day have no idea how I managed to convince the missus for me to get a monitor lizard. I have no idea how I managed. We were looking at this. It's like an office that used to be a garage. It's like split into an office and a utility room. And I was looking at the wall and I was like, "But I could make an 8-foot enclosure there." Even as I was saying it, I was like, "This isn't going to work.
She's never going to go for it.
It's not going to happen." Like, she already said no to the snakes. Yeah. Like, to be fair, she bought me my first one as a birthday present. She said no more. We've got a few more now. But I was just there thinking, if you don't ask, you don't get. I'm going to shoot my shot here. And to this day, I don't know how I'm sat next to an 8-foot enclosure with a monitor lizard in it. No idea. No. Just perplexed, but I'm not complaining.
One wall of my kitchen is just full of reptiles, and I don't know how I get away with it.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, they must love us that much that they just go, "Oh,
that," or I've ground her down enough that she just gives in now.
Or that, yeah. But yeah, the current list of animals is beardies, leopard geckos, a crested gecko, royals, and my monitor lizard, obviously. We do have a fish tank. It's currently saltwater. Breaking that down because I've not had much luck with it, and I'm going to go to African cichlids instead. So
okay, there's a lot of work in marine tanks or saltwater tanks, and I've looked at them in the past. I had tropical when I was younger, and it's just like a whole new world when you move over to the marine stuff.
I mean, to be fair, fish keeping is where my animal keeping journey started, because fish I could get away with even when I was living at home. You know, a little tank this big in your bedroom, it's not getting in the way of anything. But it's really weird because the current tank I've got is 180 litres. And it's caused me nothing but issues, saltwater wise. But then when I lived in Hampshire, I had a 40-litre that I turned into a marine fish tank, and it was perfect. No troubles at all. And yet I've gone bigger and apparently better. Upgraded the filtration, the lighting, everything. And it's just caused me nothing but issues. So I'm going to break that down. I've got a guy coming to pick up the clownfish, and I'm just going to turn it into an African cichlid tank.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I think reptiles are slightly easier than fish now anyway, because obviously you haven't got to worry about the like chemical levels and stuff in the water with
Yeah,
reptiles. They've got some substrate. It's not
yeah.
too bad. Like there's not going to be an ammonia spike and
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
all that
yeah.
stuff. So that's great. So your first reptile was leopard gecko. What sort of age were you when you got that one? I know you said you were at your parents. So we're talking like like young teens. Were you still living there when you were like early 20s?
No, I
What sort of
moved
time
out
scale?
when I was either 18 or 20. I can't remember. So I think I was probably about 16, 17 when I got my first leopard gecko. So that was all right because they were saying to me, where you going to keep it? How much is the enclosure? And I was like, I'll build the enclosure out of an old wardrobe.
Yeah.
And to be fair to myself, at 16, 17 years old, I did a pretty good job of it. So that was all right, but they didn't mind that because obviously it's less money being spent and things like that. So
Yeah.
that was all right. But then I moved out. I said to myself, whilst I'm renting, I'm not going to get any reptiles. That didn't work. I got some reptiles whilst I was renting as well. And then they went. I ended up meeting my missus, who pretty much on the second or third date, we got chatting about animals and what we've kept and what we like. And I said, oh, yeah, I used to have leopard geckos. And she looked at me and she went, no, I don't like reptiles. They scare me. Now, obviously, at that point, I'm thinking to myself, if things go serious here, I'm never going to keep reptiles again.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure what happened. In actual fact, it was her idea to get our first beardie because we went into the reptile shop because these people that I befriended, they had like a pet owl as well, a Eurasian eagle owl. So I said to her, let's go in there. I said, you don't need to look at the reptiles. Let's just go and look at the owl. And then on the way out, she saw this little tank of baby beardies and she was asking all these questions about them. And I'm there like, why do you care? You're scared of reptiles. Why,
But
why are
baby
you
beardies
asking
are cute,
questions?
aren't they?
Exactly.
Baby
And
beardies
then,
are really cute.
yeah, the lady walked away and she leaned into me and she just went, should we get a beardie? And I went, well, yes. You're never going to hear no from me. And then, shock horror, a few weeks later, if not maybe a couple of months, she went in there to get bugs. She called me up and she was like, I've fallen in love with a bearded dragon who's a rescue.
Yeah.
I was like, right. I said, so it's taken you this long to appreciate reptiles? She said, I've just love him. She said, he's all skinny. He's lost the end of his tail, but his eyes are beautiful. And I can I get him? And I went, why are you asking? This is the man that will say, just bring him home. You know what I mean? But they got some weight on him first and we bought these set up. And so, yeah, so the two bearded dragons were her idea, to be fair.
Oh, that's brilliant. I think bearded dragons are like the gateway drug into reptiles. Bearded dragons and leopard geckos.
Yeah, 100%.
My wife like that. She likes the I don't like to call the damaged ones, so to speak. So, like you say, the ones that haven't got tails, the ones that are missing toes. Like we've got a crested gecko that hasn't got a tail, and that's her favorite thing. When we were looking at getting a crested gecko, she specified that she wanted one that didn't have a tail.
Really, she wanted a frog butt.
Yeah, she wanted a frog one. We had a little corn snake at one point that the pet shop gave us because it was born. It was quite like kinked, and they were like, "It might live, it might not. You can have it if you want it," because they know I'm quite experienced. Yeah, and we had it. It didn't last very long, maybe 2.5 months.
Okay.
And she actually absolutely loved that snake. Like it was her whole world. So yeah, she likes the broken ones.
Well, like I say, it was funny because when she bought me this first royal python, she said, right, you're keeping it in your games room. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear anything about it. I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah. And there was a couple of times that I was holding said snake. And she was like, can I come and see it? I was like, yeah, of course you can. She was coming in. She was, can I hold it? Yes, you can. She was holding it. Now, it got to the point where she used to come around every now and again to help me in the reptile shop when I was part owner in it. And I remember once we were putting a berm. It wasn't an adult. It was probably around about 5 or 6 feet. Yeah. So it's not a bad size. And I needed to put it in a container whilst we cleaned the enclosure. And this berm started, coming out the other end of the enclosure, to which she just went, oh, no, sweetheart, go on back in, you get a Burmese python. She knew what it was. She didn't think it was a royal. And she was like, come on, sweetheart, back in. And she shut the lid. And I just looked at her like, are you serious?
Yeah, see,
that's a Burmese python.
Yeah, I know snakes as well. And like a 5-6 foot berm, like they're the ones that are going to bite you over a big one. I wouldn't be tapping it on the nose and telling it to go back in the tub.
She literally called it sweetheart and went, no, back in the tub. And it did. Like it wasn't showing any signs of aggression or anything like that. It was quite handleable. But I was just there. She put it in the box. I was just looking at her like, this is the woman that was scared of reptiles, and now you're calling a Burmese python sweetheart and just handling it like a royal. And she was just like, she just looked at me. She was like, what? I was like, I cannot believe what I've just witnessed, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Does she come in and help out with your collection at the moment, or is it sort of that's your domain and she doesn't really come in?
The maintenance is all on me unless I'm away, for example. She feeds the beardies pretty much every morning. She's happy to do things like that. She'll pick their poo if she sees it,
Yeah.
but the majority of the animal maintenance is on myself, to be fair.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool. It's nice to be able to sort of share, like, I know she's not fully involved, but nice to be able to share that sort of passion a bit as well.
It
Like,
is.
yeah,
It is. It's quite nice because it's also like a little like bonding mechanism for us as well. Like,
yeah,
for example, we had a clutch of snake eggs late last year, and she was buzzing. She was
that's
absolutely.
brilliant.
It's like these little babies were coming out, and she was absolutely buzzing. Like the joy in her face when these little babies were coming out was just. It was really nice because it's one of those that I thought if I ever did, it was probably going to be something that I enjoyed by myself and like with the
Yeah,
internet. But no, she was in there. She was there. Like she was waiting for me to come home, going, "Could we check on the babies?" I was like, "Yeah, sweet." But she loves it. Absolutely loves it.
no,
But
that's
the
brilliant.
poo picking and the changing of waters and blah blah blah, that's on me. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's part of it. You got to do the rubbish jobs to have the fun bits as well, haven't you?
exactly. Yeah.
So in the get to know section, you
Mhm.
mentioned you have a roughneck monitor.
I do.
So Ragnar is the name of the roughneck monitor, am I correct?
It is. Yes.
And Ragnar was a boy.
Ragnar was a boy. So we've had a very interesting couple of weeks. I've been speaking to Paul a lot, hence Paul's monitors. He is the monitor man. And he's been saying, because I've been saying it's very, very hard to sex these animals. And I've been sending pictures, top sides, undersides, because sometimes she's at the glass and I'm like, quick, get a picture of her junk, which looks really weird. And I feel like a pervert, but it is what it is.
You got to do it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And we're back and forth. And I'm asking other people that might have an idea who keep Rudies as well. And there was one guy that was like, oh, yeah, by those pictures, I'd probably say female. And then I sent him a few more and he went, okay, by those pictures, I'd say male. So I was in the same place. And it was at the point, like, I wouldn't have been upset either way, but I would quite like to know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's like I've got this animal. If it's male, is it maybe too small? If she's female, is she a good size? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to go away for a few days. I was going to Wales for one of my other countless hobbies, and I was just changing her water, getting things ready, and I just happened to spot in the substrate this little, it looked like an olive, maybe a little bit bigger, and I lost it. I was like. I'd lost it. I was like, I cannot believe what I'm witnessing. I was literally there going, Paul, guess what? I've just found him in the enclosure, blah, blah, blah. I'm sending pictures, messages, this and that. But unfortunately, my mate had turned up and we had to go. But yeah, so at the minute, we're sticking with Mrs. Ragnar.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be able to change it, although there's one person that might be able to. I'm not going to say anything just yet, just in case it doesn't happen.
Yep.
But yeah, Mrs. Ragnar at the moment. But it's just cool because it's that thing that you know now.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have it like set in concrete, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Because obviously the only way a lot of the time with these animals is, as we know, laying eggs. It happened with our bearded dragon as well. I know they're a little bit easier to sex when they get a bit older, but we were sold Rango as a male. And then we came in one day and my missus said, our male beardie has laid a load of eggs. And I was like, well,
yeah.
Okay.
I've got a friend that has a beardie called Paddy, and I think Paddy laid 36 eggs not that long ago.
Yeah,
so it happens.
It does. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's cool. I'm quite happy. I mean, she's gone to bed already. I'm sat next to the enclosure, and she knows it's coming up to the time where the lights go out, so she takes herself off into her cave and chills. Really.
That's brilliant. So, when did you make the decision to go for a monitor? Because obviously, a monitor. It's not as much of I like to think it's not as much of an impulse buy as perhaps a gecko or a beardie is. I know people can go in and impulse buy them. Was it an impulse buy when you originally got Ragnar? Was it planned? And if it was, how? Well, yeah, tell us about that decision.
I'd say it was almost a bit of both. I knew enough about monitors ish to know that this isn't an animal you take home and put in a 3-foot viv. But I didn't know to what extent. So I basically walked into the reptile shop one day, walked in and I saw this enclosure. And I saw this monitor, or I didn't even know it was monitor lizard at that point because I just walked in. And I looked at this lizard and I went, I'm not sure what that is, but I need it.
Yeah.
I just fell in love with this animal. It had the greeny stripes and that obviously that rough neck and things like that. And I just looked at it and I went, I need it. It's as simple as that. And the guy said it's a monitor lizard. It'll get quite big. I said fine. I said, but let me see what I can do with the missus.
Yeah.
Let me see if I've got the room for him, her, and I'll see what I can do. So it was an impulse as such, but I made sure I was ready for her first.
Yeah, no, I
So
know what you
got
mean.
in,
So
checked the
yeah, the
sizes.
original
Yeah,
the original sort of thought of, oh, I'm going to get one was
yeah,
the impulse, but you didn't buy him there, her there and then,
no.
and bring it home. Which is, I think, if you're going to do it, that's probably the way to do it. If you're going to be an like impulse buyer, so to speak.
It annoys me because I see a lot. I'm in a few of these Facebook groups, and a lot of people do come on and go, "Hi guys, I was at a Reptile Expo, for example. Can anyone tell me what monitor this is and what I need to
Yeah,
do?" And you're just like, oh,
yeah,
"Don't
no,
do
I
that."
agree.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that. You can't like you shouldn't really do it with any animal. Um, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'll find the space," but
Yeah,
the
you should
monitors
have the
is
space already.
you should do. You need to know what you're getting as well. You can't put on Facebook, what is this and how do I look after it? Do you know
No,
what I mean? You need to, if you see an animal you like at an expo, at a reptile shop, blah, 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 you take the name of it, you go do your research, you find people, it's not something that you should jump into. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, you wouldn't go to a car boot sale and buy a puppy if you didn't know anything about dogs. So
no,
why would you do it with a
no.
snake or a lizard or whatever?
I
Uh,
think the problem with a lot of it is people almost still see them as expendable. It's
yeah,
like because they're not cute and fluffy, people just see these scaly animals and go, "Oh, that might be quite cool for little Jimmy or little Sarah," and then it's just sort of left and well, it was just a snake or it was just a lizard.
yeah.
Whereas if they did it
I
with a
find quite
bunny
often.
rabbit,
Yeah, I find quite often as well that maybe not so much with the monitors, but things like beardies, leopard geckos, like your corn snakes as well. A lot of people buy them for like their younger children,
mm,
and then the kids enjoy them for 6 months or a year, and then maybe they get bitten and they don't like it anymore, or they just lose interest and they move on to the
mm,
next hobby, and then the animal gets discarded, and the people don't seem to care. Whereas I know it does happen with dogs and cats as well, but it seems to be a lot more prevalent with reptiles. People just sort of see them as throwaways.
well, yeah, because the thing is, they see it's almost like, oh, it's a snake, it's something cool. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like, oh, it's a lizard. Who has a lizard? But then when they get a species that's predominantly nocturnal, and little Jimmy's not seeing it ever, and he gets
yeah,
bored very quickly, as kids do, that's when they go, well, that was pointless, wasn't it? Let's just get rid.
yeah, exactly.
So, but that's the problem. But if they did their research first and it said, predominantly nocturnal, you probably won't see this animal much during the day, then maybe at that point they'll go, well, we won't bother them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get them a guinea pig or something like that. So,
No, I agree. I think as well that if people are doing any sort of research at all, they sort of Google it, and the care sheets are all there, but the care sheets are provided by people that are selling the animals, so
yeah.
there's not going to be any negatives in there really.
Hmm.
It's one of those things. But I think the way the hobby is going, it is slowly turning the corner. And trying to educate people more than just flog stuff,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. No,
nice.
I agree. I think because a lot of the time going back, I mean, I know there's still a lot of it now. It's that wow factor and the danger factor,
Yeah,
of having this giant 18-foot animal and just messing with it and people kissing the back of cobra heads and blah blah
oh, that's
blah. And you're
amazing.
just like, it's it's crazy, really. But I get it to an extent, but that doesn't mean like I'll do wow factor stuff with Ragnar. But that's
Yeah,
not me going, well, let's see if we can get her to bite me. It's a case of let's get her to run up my arm with, eating a locust or something like that.
yeah,
Like
exactly, which is
there is
cool.
an in
And
between.
yeah, there definitely is. A friend of mine went to where did he go? Morocco recently. He keeps snakes as well. Um, and they in Morocco, he said the whole place was really nice, but in like the town centre where the tourists are, they have like say the cobras in the baskets and they're kissing their heads and stuff. And
Mm,
he said if you were to go as like a non-reptile keeper or someone that was just like an average person, you'd go, oh, that's pretty cool, or maybe oh, it's a little bit cruel, but because he is like educated more than the average person on reptiles, you can see the condition of these animals, and he said
mm,
it's horrific.
yeah.
And yeah, it's not a nice thing really. But like you say, it's for the wow factor, and it's like people are on holiday and they're like, oh wow, let's go and kiss the cobra, which is
Yeah.
just
Or get a
ridiculous.
picture with a big snake over their shoulders and things like that.
Yeah,
Like,
or the people that go to Thailand and they like sit next to the tigers that are drugged and stuff like that.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah, exactly. But again, like you say, it comes down to lack of knowledge and
Yeah,
education. Like, you can't stay mad at the tourists, because how are they supposed to know? As far as they're aware, it's a case of oh, this is cool, this is clearly okay.
yeah,
But like you say, for the people that are more educated and understand, you just look at it and you go, why are you
yeah.
doing that?
No, definitely. It's like I find since I've been keeping reptiles as well. It's like when I go, if you go on a trip to a zoo, I now spend less time actually looking at the animals in the enclosure and looking at the enclosures.
Yeah,
Like you go into the reptile house at London Zoo and you're like, oh, there's a cool snake in there, but look, I like the way they put the rocks over there, or they've got a waterfall in that bit. Like,
yeah,
it's funny how
yeah.
your attention changes, isn't it?
Well, we went to the advancing herpetological husbandry. What's it called? Conference. That's it. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
I forgot the word for conference. And part of the ticket was we got to go into Drayton Manor Zoo as well. And they basically took us into the reptile house first, which obviously that's where we all wanted to go
yeah,
firstly. But it's just funny because you've just got all of these reptile enthusiasts walking in, and everyone's looking for the snake and trying to find this. And again, like you say, looking at the enclosures and going, "That's cool. I wouldn't. It's a good idea, that." So
yeah.
it's nice, but the problem is, if you go to places where they're going to keep them substandard, you almost can't enjoy it anymore, can you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I believe it's changed a lot now, but when I was younger, I must have been like, I don't know, between 12 and 15ish. Me and my family went to the Isle of Wight. We went to the Isle of Wight Zoo,
Oh yeah,
and it's changed. This was like, I'm not slagging it off now, but I'm slagging it off back then. This was
yeah,
like 15 plus years ago. I don't know. And we were there for like 20 minutes, turned around and walked out. Like, it was horrific. They had like a tiger enclosure that was like no bigger than my back garden. It was concrete and like
yeah,
it was just not nice. But
yeah.
yeah, apparently it's changed now, so that's plus. Anyway,
Okay.
let's move on to something a bit more positive.
Yeah, cool.
So we were going down a rabbit hole then. I'm trying to steer away from it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
so I want to talking of, actually, this sort of segues in. We were talking about enclosures, and you
Mhm.
on YouTube at the moment are in the process of documenting your transition from, well, I don't know how to describe it, but let's say, for the sake of the conversation, like the bare minimum sort of leopard geckos for their enclosures to a more naturalistic. They weren't like bare minimum, but
It was
you're
standard.
yeah, they're bog standard, and now you're
Yeah,
moving them
yeah,
to like a more naturalistic habitat. So,
yeah.
what's the process? We'll talk leopard geckos specifically because it's in line with your videos at the moment. But yeah, what specifically have you done, and how do you think it is improving? Have you noticed like behaviour of the leopard geckos, all that sort of jazz?
I sort of have, actually. It's just given that extra thing for them to think about and see and do. Again, the problem is like we were saying earlier on about these care sheets. A lot of these care sheets for leopard geckos, it's a desert species, keep it dry, no humidity, blah blah blah. And then you look into it a bit more, and it's like, well, no, these animals want sort of 30 to 40% humidity, so you can get away with a sort of topsoil and sand mix. You
Yep.
can put plants in there, and you can have, you can spray them and water them and things like that, and they're not going to die.
Yeah,
Obviously, there's a fine balance. You don't want to give any respiratory issues and things like that. But so it was more. I was starting to look in a bit more. This is where the positives of social media comes in, because you scroll, for example, Instagram or TikTok and things like that, and you see, here's my leopard gecko enclosure, and it's just beautifully planted, and it's got
yep,
this soil and sand mix and things like that, and I'm looking at it going, really? Because mine's just sand,
yep,
you know. And then it does start to click, because you look at it and you go, well, maybe this is why they've got all their toes, things like that, but they sort of sometimes struggled a bit with getting rid of those last little bits of shed. Little bit on one of them, her nose every now and again she struggled with, and I'm there thinking, well, she's got a humid hide, but that's it. I've been told it's got to be pretty much arid, apart from a humid hide when they're shedding.
yeah,
And then you start looking at it, so for example, I have noticed ever since I've gone to these sort of bioactive and slightly humid enclosures, no shedding issues. And it's just one of those little worries that's just gone, boop, all gone. See you later. Lovely
yeah,
job. I'm keeping my animals in a much better condition. And it's more to look at, because the leopard geckos don't come out that often.
yeah,
They have been a little bit more so recently since I've upgraded their enclosures. But this is like what I said with my crested gecko enclosure. Even if you can't see the cresty, it's almost like a centerpiece.
yeah,
Like it's currently got this beautiful bromeliad in the middle of it, and it's got hanging plants, and it's got, it just looks nice, and like the animal is almost like a bonus when he comes out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know exactly what you mean. So we're in my living room at the moment. Obviously, I've got the chameleon enclosure behind me, and
Class.
before that, we had like your bog standard Repti breeze. It had a bit of what's the stuff? What's the word called? I don't know. You know, like the wooden crosshatch stuff that like you put in the garden, vines grow up it.
Oh
Had that
yeah,
around the
yeah,
edges of it, and just like your bog standard tubes across it,
yeah,
and like it was functional, but it looked crap.
yeah.
So I found this.
Functional, the key word.
Yeah, so behind me, it was a bird cage. It had like bars on the front,
Yeah,
like a normal bird cage. It's big as well. It's like 6 foot tall, 4 foot wide.
class. Yeah,
I cut the front of it off and then made like the screen door for it.
yeah,
And now it's like the centerpiece of my living room. You walk in there, and
Mm,
instead of looking at the telly, I spend half the time just staring at that. And then on the other side
absolutely.
of the room, we've got a live planted cresty enclosure as well.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I completely agree. So well, I've got a leopard gecko in the other room. We've got a few around the house, but that one in that room is specifically mine. The other two are the kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I was setting him up, before I knew I was getting him, when I sort of rescued him, so he came from a friend of a friend, and he'd been kept in a 30 by 30 by 30 exoterra for his entire life. And
hmm
he is not a small leopard gecko. He's like a good 12 inches long. He's the size of my forearm. He's a massive boy. And he was like heat mat. He'd only been fed waxworm, so he had massive like fat pockets under his armpits.
Yeah.
So we got him here. I moved him into a 2 foot Viv because that's what I had spare, but it was better than what it was in.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had this glass Exoterra that I bought off Facebook Marketplace or something. And I was like, right, I really want to make it special because he's like 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
And he'd been in that like box Viv for years. I was like, I've got to make it special
Yeah.
because I feel really bad for him. So I spent like a good week or so going through YouTube, searching for videos of people finding them in the wild and
hmm
looking to see where they were being found. And I found they weren't being found like in deserts, like you say. They were found on the side of like at the bottom of like rocky cliffs, so like very slaty, like sand soil mixture, lots of long grasses.
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried to replicate as best I can. So it's got, like you say, live planted. It's got slate in there. It's all sculpted, like expanding foam and all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
And yeah, he doesn't come out much. He comes out like 20 minutes before his lights go off, and he sits
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
basking spot, which is nice. It's nice to see him like out and like sunbathing for a little bit before the lights
Mm,
go out. And he hunts for a little bit, and I don't see him too often. But I know that he's much happier in there.
yeah.
I don't know. I hope he's much happier in there than he was in the other enclosure.
You
It's
can make
nice.
an educated assumption at that point, can't you? Because
Definitely.
you almost put yourself in that same position. Where would I be happier in this little, in a
Yeah, well, it's like coming out of I don't know, an 8x8 prison cell and then moving to a massive house in the countryside, isn't it?
yeah, you're going to be happier, aren't you?
Yeah.
With more things to do and see and things like that. But yeah, it's funny. I've not, because they're in a different room. I've not, because I've recently upgraded the heating and the lighting as well.
Yeah.
That was part 2 of the upgrade, and it looks class. I'm really happy with how that's come out. But I've not been able to be in there that often since I've done that to notice any basking just yet. One of them does. I've gone in there and she's just walking around and
Yeah.
she's trying to interact with stuff. And what I do is I just chuck locust in there for them to hunt as well.
Yeah.
I just make sure that they're gone. But if they're dead, obviously, I'll make
Yeah.
sure that I top them up. But because it's just nicer, do you know what I mean? So I've not managed to see any basking or anything yet. But it's coming.
Yeah, no, it will come. It took his name's Winston. It took him a good probably
Winston,
8.
excellent.
Yeah. It took him like a good 18 months, I reckon, before I spotted him basking at all.
Yeah.
He's in the kitchen, so it's in quite a high traffic area.
Right. Okay.
He's getting more and more. He's quite high. He's like shoulder height in the room. So
Yeah.
like the dogs and stuff don't bother him at all. And he seems to be getting used to us now. Like if I start cooking, he sort of sticks his head out because he's got like a heat. He's got a deep heat projector that goes onto a piece of slate, which is like built into the background, and then he's got a cave underneath that as well. So he spends most of his time underneath the slate,
Yeah.
which is still relatively warm, and then he comes out and sits on top of it as well, which is nice because then he can sort of survey the area. But yeah, I always chuck locust in there just to try and make it as wild as possible. I don't handle him. I don't bother. Like he's been handled enough. He can stay in there and do whatever he wants.
Yeah. It's because I've got 2 at the minute. One of them doesn't mind being handled. I don't get them out. I literally, if I see they're at the glass, I'll open the glass, put my hand in. If they want to come out, they can come out.
Yeah.
One of them's quite happy to do so quite often, and she'll just climb up, sit there, and just
Brilliant.
chill. She's quite nice. But again, this is through no sort of tempting with tongue feeding and things like that. It's just they've got their own space, they've got their enclosures, they've got hopefully everything they need in their enclosures, and they're more comfortable. No forced handling, things like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're
No,
good.
definitely. Michael was just asking in the comments, what plants are you using? I don't know what plants I'm using in mine. There's like a spider plant and a grassy looking thing and some succulents. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. Do you know what you're using in yours?
Similar to you, succulents I know are quite a good go-to. I think one of them's I've gone for a fern.
Yeah.
In the leopard geckos, I'm not actually. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not that clued up on plants.
No, I'm not. I went into the shops and like Googled the names and then Googled
It
are they leopard
literally,
gecko safe?
mate. I was stood. There was one point when I was doing my first bioactive. I was stood in B&Q just like this, just going. Is that the
Yeah.
same name? Oh, that. I'm thinking, I
I've
don't know
done
if
that
that's the
many
same
times.
name, but
Yeah.
and I even asked the lady. I was like, "Oh, excuse me, this plant here, is this the same as this one?" And she went, "I'm sorry, sweetheart." She said, "I have no idea about plants." I was like, "Well, that makes two of us." But as long as I can confirm that they're safe, obviously the positive for the leopard geckos is they're not going to directly eat the plants.
Yeah.
You've got the worry of the locust eating any toxic plants and then them
My
eating the
locusts
locust. But
decimate the plants. It does my head in. Like, so I'll do like 3 or 4 months where the plant's looking amazing, and then there'll be one locust that he just decides he's not going to eat, and
Mhm.
it's like you go in there the next day and it's like the plague of locusts has gone through it.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that's
Oh,
all it takes over, isn't it? It's just the
yeah,
one you come in because, like you say, it looks lovely, and then all of a sudden you've got these little bite marks in leaves, and you're just like, I wish you just got eaten. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I tell you what's annoying me a bit more, but not in a bad way, but it's more just in a comedic sense.
yeah.
I did the bearded dragons as well. I've moved them over to bioactive. I put succulents, plants, things like that. One of them especially, he just it's almost like he sees them. He's almost like a cat. So he just goes up and he'll just knock it over. And
Nice. Just what
he'll
you
just
want.
look at you whilst he's doing it. You're like, but why? Why? I've put it in there for you for it to look nice and it's lovely for you and it will help this and that. And he'll just be sat on one of the plants and he just crushes it and you're just like, well, sound. I can put it back in properly for you, but the likelihood is you're probably gonna sit on it again or just throw it
Yeah,
away. But
I think bearded dragons are a bit like tortoises when it comes to making their enclosures nice. They're a bit just bulldozer, aren't they? They don't care. Like our tortoises will, I like rearrange their like tortoise table once a week, and you can go back 20 minutes after rearranging it, and it looks nothing like it. The water bowls
yeah,
are full of mud. Like,
yeah.
come on, just let
That
it be
one as
nice for a
well.
little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I get that problem with Ragnar when I change her like big water bowl out.
Yeah,
It's like I think it's like a 20-liter tub. Um, I'll put brand new fresh water in there. Lovely job. Come in the next morning and she's just taking a dump in it.
yeah.
You just say going, but I get it. It must be nice, but give it a couple of days. You know what I
I
mean?
know
Or
it
just
hurts,
maybe
doesn't it?
just
Like you look at it, like, oh man.
yeah,
Like
pretty much.
whenever we get visitors come round, they're like, "Oh, can we see everything?" Obviously, as people do, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, "Yeah, yeah. Excuse that water bill. I promise I cleaned it out this morning. Excuse that one. They're just a nightmare."
I've done it on YouTube videos as well. I'll be filming like I think I did an all my animals video, and I was showing, and again, I'm pretty sure there's one point, and I go, I did change that this morning, or you know what I mean. But you're there going, someone's going to see that and go, you neglect your animals because they've got rubbish in the water bowl. And you're like, no, I
Yeah,
don't. It was clean, but apparently for reptiles, clean water means it's time to use it as a toilet.
definitely. Yeah, they
Mm.
just they're drawn to it. Like, yeah, it's just it's what they do, I suppose, isn't it? So in your leopard geckos, are you? I can't remember off the top of my head. Did you introduce any sort of cleanup crew into the enclosures, or are you planning to if you haven't already?
I did. I don't know how well they're doing because I say I've not been in that room that much. But I put some woodlice and springtails in there. Um, I'm not 100% sure how they're doing. Like I say, I've not managed to check, but excuse me. When I've had some closer inspections, I've not managed to see them that much.
Yeah.
Um, but they could just be hidden in the leaf litter and things like
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I find the springtails do really well in the with the leopard geckos. Obviously, it's not as humid as say like a cresty bioactive
Mm,
would be.
yeah,
But I think Winston ate all of the isopods that I put in there. I've topped them up a few times, and
yeah,
like I can never find them. Occasionally, I'll go in and I'll see one like scurry away, but
yeah.
there's only so many places they can hide, and I think he's eaten them all. But hey ho,
That
if we
could be the
get an
problem
extra,
as well, to be fair, like you say, because what I was about to say is I've recently done a royal python into a bioactive enclosure as well. I've not done the lighting yet,
yeah,
but I'll go in there and I'll see springtails. I'll see the little woodlice running around. I'm like, yeah, cool. But then I'll go, why can't I see them in the leopard geckos? But that could be the answer. The leopard
Yeah.
geckos are seeing them before I am, and we have that.
Yeah, exactly. I try and keep when I feel that they've got a water. It's obviously got a water bowl, but when I fill up the water bowl, I deliberately overflow it. So, and then underneath the water bowl is some sphagnum moss. So if there are any isopods left in there, they'll always have that damp section as well, and it keeps like he's got like a humid hide. It's not a humid hide. It's just some moss underneath a hide, like underneath a ledge that keeps it a bit more humid. But I figured if I can keep the isopods they've got some sort of like refuge, like that he can't get in. Hopefully there'll be a few in there, but I don't see them very often if they are in there. It's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Yeah. We spend this money on them, and whether it's the isopods or the plants, and they crush them, and we go, well, I'll do it again for you.
Exactly. No, exactly that. And you said you got royals as well. And you've just done a bioactive. I know you're moving away from racks, and I'm not. Paul's in the comments going racks. I'm not going to touch on racks today. If you want to discuss racks, anybody that's watching, go and watch Paul and Andrew's video on Paul's channel, because I don't want to have to deal with that conversation today, to be honest.
No, that's cool.
What size is the Viv you've moved the royal into, and how are you finding it doing in there so far?
It's a 4-foot enclosure, and I've seen her in every different section of this enclosure at different times. I've seen her basking under the heat lamp directly. I've seen her inside her cave on the sort of warmer side, sort of in the middle. I've seen her on the far right-hand side where it is the cooler side. I've seen her on there's like a log in there as well that she can climb on. I've seen her in the plants tell you everything you need to know anyway, because they're crushed mostly. They're doing okay, but you can sort of see where she's been. Like if you go in there in the morning just to have a quick poo check and things like that, you do go, oh, you went that way last night, did you? Okay, cool.
How old is she? What sort of size are we talking?
So I'm not actually sure how old she is. She was not a rescue. She was almost sort of gifted to us from this reptile shop. I say gifted. I'm pretty sure I've paid for her with all the money. But again, that's. But she's a good sort of 4.5 feet, I reckon. Maybe 4.5 feet. So she's a
2.5 kilo sort of size as well.
Yeah, probably around about that. She is a good size.
Fair size royal then.
Yeah.
And have you had any issues with her feeding? Because obviously that's the main argument that people ask about.
No. I fed, what was it, 2 or 3 nights ago? Or in actual fact, we'll go back to the first time I fed, because obviously that one's been set up for a few weeks. I don't feed her every week. The adults, I do sort of leave them for a little bit longer than just a week, so I don't want fat snakes. But like you say, that was my concern. I was like, I've taken her from this sort of small enclosure that I know she's going to feed in. I've put her in this bigger space. Do you know what? In the back of your head, you still think, but do you remember when people said that they don't eat very well in big Vivs?
Yeah.
It's still there. Even though I've gone, no, it's still there. And I'm like, right, let's give it a go. I go upstairs. She's pretty much at the glass. I'm like, all right, well, that's a good start. Open the glass, dangle this rat in front of her. It took maybe 4 seconds, 5 seconds.
So it would be exactly the same as if she was in a rack.
Yeah. She hit it, she coiled it, and I came in a few hours later and it was gone. Like, obviously, it didn't take her that long, but I was away for a little while. I went back up just to make sure, because I know that snakes do sometimes strike and coil, and then they go, actually, don't fancy it. I'm going to leave it in the hot side so that it smells the house out for the rest of the day.
Or they leave it in the water bowl, and it's
the water bowl,
some sort of grim soup.
Oh, it's gross, isn't it? It really is. But
I find you don't tend to smell it until it comes out the water bowl as well, and then it just releases the stink.
Yeah. That's one of the negatives of keeping snakes is things like that. Because I've had a couple before that literally they strike it, they take it, coil it, and I'm like, lovely job. And then come in the morning, because I usually feed in the evening time.
Yeah, I do.
And I come in the next morning, open the reptile room door, and go, oh yeah, someone didn't eat last night.
You can recognise the scent so easily as well. Once you don't want to tea, like I'm the same. So I'll feed mine in the evening. I tend to feed mine on a Sunday, and then Monday morning before work, I'll come down, sorting myself out, hoping they've already ate, because I normally check them before I go to bed as well. And occasionally, as I'm walking past, I'm like, I know that smell. Like first thing, I'm like, oh great, I've got to deal with this before I go out now.
Yeah. But no, she took it absolutely fine. No worries. She's eaten a couple of times since as well.
Okay.
absolutely fine. So
To be fair, I may at some point do a round 2 with Paul, and I might get you on as well, and we'll discuss racks. But there's so much drama on both sides of the argument, and I'm not sure I've got the mental capacity for it, to be honest.
yeah, see, luckily for me and Paul, it is a case of let's have it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and like I say, the positive is I'm on one side, but wanting to be on the other side. So
yeah. To
I'm
be fair,
almost like a
you are
medium.
at a nice like perspective
Yeah.
to sort of talk both as well, because obviously I'm not. Oh, right, we'll go into it a little bit, but I'm not going into it properly.
No,
But
no, you're
obviously,
good.
keeping in racks, like I don't know how to word it really. Like I've kept raws in Vivs, and I've kept them in racks,
Hmm.
and in my experience, and only my experience, nobody else's experience, I found that I tend to get a better feeding response from the snakes if they're in a smaller enclosure. And it's not always the case. And I've got
Hmm.
some, like, mine are all in racks at the moment, but I've got some, like, hatchlings that are in, like, what you would class as an adult tub,
Hmm.
and they feed better in that. And I know it varies from snake to snake. And I also appreciate the other side where they should be getting UV and they should be getting the option to stretch out and bask. And so I understand it.
Yeah.
But from
It's
a feeding specific point of view, I've had better feeding responses if they're in tubs.
See, that's the thing. That's how it was almost proven to me as well. It's like because I had one that was in a 4 foot viv, and he wasn't eating, and the guy at the reptile shop said, "Put him in a rack, give it a few days, maybe a week or so, try again, and then you should be all right." Because he's smaller, he feels less, exposed, and blah blah blah. Now, unfortunately for me, it worked.
That's
I
the
went back a
problem.
week later. I went to feed him, and he smashed it. But then you've got the other side because I started looking into it, and that is one of the biggest arguments that rat keepers like saying. And again, I'm a rat keeper, so this isn't me saying I hate rat keepers. You're all. I currently do it, but the thing that I found is yes, they feel better in maybe a smaller space, but you make a big space feel smaller. So you clutter
Yeah,
the life out of it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like she's got hides, she's got plants, she's got logs, she's got, places to bask where she's still hidden.
yeah,
And she's absolutely smashed it. Now, this is what I mean. So the good thing for me is I can't sit here and sound like I'm having a go at rat keepers because I am currently one.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
No, I know what you
does
mean.
that give me more of a reasoning to be able to talk about? Because a lot of people, like you say, with the arguments, it's a case of, well, how would you know? You haven't got one. You've never kept one. And it's like these the sides of the fence.
Yeah.
They're there, and then they clash, and there's no mediation in between.
No, I
I'm
do
right,
find that
you're wrong,
definitely.
and
And
things like that.
there's no middle ground either. Like you're the argument on the it's all on the internet anyway, isn't it? But the
Yeah.
argument is you're either a rat keeper or you're not a rat keeper.
Mm.
There's no in between. Like Paul said, I'm going to paraphrase him, but he said, if you keep snakes in racks, you're a dickhead. Like, there's not
Yeah, said that. Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I know he then went on further and like said his reasoning and whatnot. But for someone that, like, say someone's listening to the podcast now and they go, "Oh, I keep the snakes in racks," but I don't want to say anything to anyone because
Mm.
they're feeding. I don't want to change that, or I don't know where to go for information on how to change it because
Hmm.
if I ask the people that are already keeping in naturalistic enclosures, I'm going to get shot down. And if
Yeah.
I ask the keepers that are keeping in racks, they're going to go, "Why the bloody hell are you changing
Yeah.
over? There's no point because it's brilliant."
Yeah, see that was the good thing with because yes, Paul did come out and say that, but we went quite a bit more into it. He said, "Now
No,
that
you
that's
did.
out of the way, let's get into it." So, and it's a case of it's never too late to change, and because we see it so often, people getting shot down, they don't want to ask. Why would they ask if they know that someone's going to go, you're an awful keeper, you shouldn't keep animals? Why would they? So they're just going to stick in the background, do what they know, stick to what they know. But it's almost like what I'm trying to do is create almost like a bit of a safer space where rat keepers and viv keepers alike can have a discussion
Yeah.
because I will talk to both sides. I'm happy to discuss. I'm happy to talk. Like as long as someone doesn't try mugging me off about it, I'll
Yeah.
talk. I'm really not bothered. Because there's got to be a way around it. The art of discussion has been lost,
No,
which
I
is why
agree.
things like this are good because hopefully, someone, like you say, someone might be listening to this and might go, I would like to talk to someone about maybe, this and that, the positives, negatives.
Yeah.
I'll talk to anyone all day of the week. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy to do so.
No, it is good. Like I listened to a podcast recently. I can't remember whose podcast it was actually, but they had Jube the snake on, or Jube the
Oh
royal.
yeah.
And they're American keeper, I think. They might be Canadian. I don't want to upset them. I can't remember though. They're from the other side of the world,
Yeah.
and they keep in racks, but they keep on like I don't know how to describe it really, but
They're almost like berm
they're
racks, aren't they?
yeah, they're massive racks. So the
Mhm.
rack, like the floor space of this rack, is like 4 foot by 2 foot,
Yeah.
and like they are like. They've got like a bioactive substrate. They've got loads of different hides, all the options. The only thing they don't have is like the UV. So again, that's like a transition as well,
Yeah.
because like royal keepers as well, it does happen with other reptiles, but royal keepers specifically, they like to collect royals. Like I will hold my hands up, don't get me wrong, like I love royals and there's so many different colors and I want all of them.
They're stunning. They just are like, they really, I know some people don't get it, but they're stunning. Like you look at some of these morphs and you're just like, that is unbelievable.
It's true. And if you go into a reptile shop and you see like there's 50 different colors of the same snake, and you go, oh, I can have all of them, but how am I going to fit all of them in your house?
Yeah.
Hang on, racks work brilliantly.
That's when the guy behind the counter says to you, you can keep as many as you want because they can live in 30-litre tubs.
Exactly.
Now, if you're at the point where you're maybe starting your reptile journey, or you're maybe not that clued up, at what point are you going to say to the guy running a reptile shop, well, no, that's not right. You're not running a reptile shop. That person is. This man or woman is running a reptile shop. At what point are you going to question their knowledge? Which is what happened to me.
No, and it happens to all of us. But like again, if you were to buy like a hatchling royal, I know that they like people say they will benefit from light, and I'm sure they do, but keeping it in like a smaller tub for even the first year of its life, like they get settled in, they eat well. Like I know you can get one. You can go to a shop, buy one, come home, put it in a 4 foot viv, and as long as the 4 foot viv's got loads of clutter in it, it will eat. But at the same time, if it's in a rack in a smaller tub, it's right in front of you. You can you haven't got to hunt for it when you open the tub. If it's hungry, it's right there, ready for the tub. So you get that response instantly. You haven't got to find it. And I think they generally settle into smaller tubs easier. So if it's settling into a small tub when you first get it, why would you then risk moving it into a 4 foot enclosure later on in life? Don't get me wrong, I understand why you would do that, but as like a keeper that maybe has just one and isn't as clued up on what's going on in the world or like the discussions, why would you bother changing to a massive viv that takes up loads of room in your bedroom, so to speak, when you've already got it in the tub over there and it works fine?
See, that's the thing. That's where a lot of people are. They go, but this is working. Do you know what I mean? So why would I change it? But I think a lot of that comes into morality and how you feel in yourself as a keeper. You know, like my babies are in smaller tubs. That's fine. And in actual fact, when I first kept them, they were pretty much just on paper towel with a hide, a water bowl, just like I say. And this is something me and Paul discussed. I wanted to make sure they were pooing, eating, shedding, this and that, everything perfectly fine. They're now on cocoa fiber. They've now got leaf litter. They've not got things like that. Now they're still not upgraded tub wise, but my hope is, and at the minute, I don't want to use this as a plug, but I'm actually, a lot of them are normals, and I'm hoping that I can just give them away to people that are going to keep.
I saw that on your Instagram story.
Yeah, like I've tried making it clear that this isn't a spin to win. It's not a raffle. It's not a shout me out and win a free snake. Because in myself, I look at my rack. This might not be the same for everyone, like yourself. I look at my rack and I go, I can't do it. I can't do it. Again, like you've said, well, it works.
Yeah,
it does. But then, how do we know that the bigger enclosure won't? You know, I mean, like I say, I've already put one, and it's about giving them the option, because a lot of people who, a lot of these big time rat keepers will come out and say, but they don't use the space. But then you look at it and you go, well, it can't, because it's only in a small space.
Yeah.
How do you know that for a fact without trying? Like, I've put a snake in a 4 foot enclosure, and she uses every inch of it, and she still eats, she still poos, and I think it just comes down to how you feel in yourself. I can't do it, and again, I won't judge people, and I'm not going to sit here and start effing and blinding at you. it's a conversation. We're opening conversation. This
Definitely. I
is
think
what
that's a
we're
good way
doing.
to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, and we're being open and honest. Like I say, it's one of those where before I was blindsided by I can keep all of these animals in these small enclosures. They're happier because they live in termite mounds and blah blah blah. Sold
Yep.
all of that. But then when you dig deeper and you do look into it, you do start going, maybe not. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's that balance, because I think a lot of people, because I nearly did, a lot of people will start getting that feeling in their head, but a lot of people would then go, it's too late. It's too late. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just carry on as
Yeah,
you are.
that
But
or they go, "Oh, I've got X amount of snakes. There's no way I could have them all in the same like individual vivs, and I
yeah,
don't want to get rid of any." And there's all
yeah.
that. There's lots of those different arguments as well. Like to be
I mean,
fair,
that's
when
the
I listen
thing.
to
Yeah.
your, go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's similar to me, because I was looking, and for a split second, I was there going, but I really enjoy all of these snakes. I like them. I can't build 14, vivariums. I haven't got the space. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the money. But then when I was looking into it, I was like, but it's not about me. It's
Yeah.
about the animals themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I can't keep them in giant vivs, every single one of them, but maybe someone else can. And the ones that I do keep, I will have the room to upgrade them. When I put that snake into her 4-foot viv, it just brought me joy.
Yeah, no, I
It
completely
really did.
understand that.
It really did. I put her in. She's looking around. She's looking at these plants. She's finding the different areas. She's funny, actually. There's one point she's decided to. I don't know if you saw this on one of my videos. She's just decided to use the cable for the heat lamp. She almost sits on it like a green tree
Yeah, like a
python.
green tree python.
It's crazy. I went to look for her at one point, and I'm there looking down in the bottom of the viv. I'm going, I can't see her. Where is she? She can't have escaped, because I've got like those wedges in the middle of the
Yeah.
nothing's open. And I look up, and she's just sat there like staring back at me like, yo, and I'm just like, all right, sweet. No
Yeah.
worries.
Have you
You know
seen
what I mean?
the sky hide things people do?
Yeah, I like the idea of that, to be
Yeah,
fair.
they're
That's
quite
quite
cool, to
cool.
be fair. I like those, and they're quite straightforward as well, aren't they? They're just runners and upside down hide, but they
Pretty
seem to
much.
work quite well.
Yeah, pretty much. But again, it gives them that option. Who's it? Liam from Reptiles and Research. He came out with quite a good one, because I think it was Mutation Creation was basically saying to him, or saying in general, that they like the small space. They won't leave the small space in the wild. They won't do so. And he said, all right, open your racks, go away for the night, come back and see how many are still in that rack.
Yeah.
And again, that was another one that I was like, oh, I get it. It's good. That's a
No,
good one,
it is
but
true, yeah.
it's a tough one. Like, I can see both sides of the coin. I know which one I'm on,
Yeah.
as such, but because I've experienced both and I'm currently experiencing both, I am happy to discuss and not send for people and tell them they're wrong for
Yeah,
doing
which
so.
it's nice because I think the community, although we are a community, we're a very divided community.
Very much so. Very
And
much.
that's one of the reasons I started the podcast, to be honest, because I'm predominantly a royal keeper. Don't get me wrong, I've got other animals as well.
Mhm.
But like the royals, I breed the royals, and my main focus at home is the royals, and I like them.
Yeah.
But I'm also very interested in like everything else. Like if I always say to my wife, if I win the lottery, I'm gonna like open a massive reptile zoo, but it's gonna be my reptile zoo and no one else can come. But then I just basically have the money and the room to have everything.
Yeah.
And it's not from they're not like Pokemon cards. I'm not like, oh, I want to collect every single animal. Like I want to work with all the different animals because everything has such different characters. Even like going from like a royal to a corn snake, like they are both what you would class as like your beginner species of snake.
Yeah.
But they're completely different. Like we've got tortoises, and before we got the tortoises, the tortoises are my wife's, and before we got the tortoises, I was like, "Oh, what the hell do you want a tortoise for? They're really boring. They do nothing." The tortoises are hilarious. They've got such character, and I had no idea. And like speaking to like you and Paul about the monitors, or last week I spoke to Namor and Claire about the macaws. Like, there's so much cool stuff in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I was going with that.
A lot of that comes from being an animal lover in general, I think, because like you say, money no object. I think all of us here would have just rooms and enclosed, like we would just go, right, well, I've got all the money and time in the world now, I'm going to get every animal I've ever wanted. It's as simple, because it comes from a place of loving animals and appreciating them for what they are and things like that. So I get it. I fully get it. You know, it it just brings us joy looking after animals and watching the way they behave and interact with things. It's like I've been sat here, we've been going for about an hour or so now, and Ragnar has changed positions a few times. She's now sat near the enclosure, fast asleep, but just out and closer to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if it's just warmer there or cooler, or she's just happier, but it's just nice to watch. You know what I mean? You see these animals moving around, and like I say, because the leopard geckos are in my little games room, so when I'm playing PlayStation or something, and every now and again I'll just be gaming, I'll just look down and I can see one of them, and I'm like, oh, what are you up to?
Yeah,
and it takes me away from gaming. I'm literally sat there going, what are you up to? And it just brings you joy.
So in my living room, we've got obviously I've got the chameleon and the tortoise behind me. So they're sort of out and doing stuff during the day. And then on the wall to my left, we've got the telly on the wall, and then next to the telly is my crested gecko enclosure. So there's 3 cresties in there. And I know people are a bit and ahhing about cohabbing sometimes. They've been all right so far, and I'm quite happy with them, and I keep a close eye on them. But we spend more time sat on the sofa staring at the cresties in the evenings than I do staring at the telly. Like the telly's on, and then like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what are they doing over there? And
like you just hear this plop. Of the crestie hitting the glass or something. You're just like, what are you doing?
They jump into the glass so much, it's hilarious.
Unbelievable.
Like it reminds me of those like little sticky things you had as a kid, like the little sticky people, and you could just lob them at a wall. It's the same sort of sticky. It's brilliant. You'll be sat there and you just hear like a thud. You're like, oh yeah, that's one of the cresties.
But see, that's one thing I quite like about fish tanks as well. I mean, not this current fish tank, as I said, but we've got it in the living room at a point where you will find you're looking at the fish tank as opposed to the TV. And it's only going to get better as well. Like, it's funny because we've got the beardies in the living room as well, but a lot of the time they'll find their little spot for the day under the basking area or under things like that, and they do just sit and chill for the majority of the day, and then they'll plop over to the other side or things like that. So, but it's not constant movement. But when you've got like a fish tank and the fish are darting in and out of hides and caves and this and that, it's nice. And even with the animals, when they do move around and you do interact with them, it just brings you joy, like having these little lives that you're taking care of.
Like quite often I get people asking, like, why do you keep reptiles? And besides the fact that I really like reptiles, I find my argument on that is the same as aquatic fish. Like they're like, oh, you can't get them out like you could get a rabbit or a hamster out. I'm like, yeah, but it's the same as a fish tank. Like I don't want to get the fish out and stroke them, but I get a lot of joy out of watching them just go about their day. I get a joy out of feeding them. Like I think they're fish and reptiles are comparable to a point. But that's sort of always my argument.
Well, I saw something recently, and it was saying, I think it was just a meme, but it was quite a good one. And it was like, why would you keep an animal that will never love you back and that you can't handle? Yeah. And the response was, why should I don't keep animals just to get rewarded with love? Yeah. And you go, yeah, that's good. Like I'm not being funny. Ragnar will bite the life out of me if I'm there. If she thinks there's locusts or any food, she doesn't love me. She knows who I am, and she sort of, she responds to an extent. Yeah. But she doesn't love me. You know what I mean? If I was there and I went, "Hello, sweetheart," she's biting that finger. You know what I mean? It's similar to Paul with Mango. That's another very good example, because that monitor wants to kill him, and he will hands down admit to that. But the adoration and the love he has for that animal, you're like, well, he's not doing it to be rewarded with love. He's doing it because he loves the animal and it brings him joy. It's the same with, a lot of these animals. We don't do it for, if you want to be rewarded with love and keeping an animal, get a dog. Yeah. I was about to say a cat, but
don't get a cat, get a dog.
Get a dog, yeah, because my cat. Well, actually, no, I've got ragdoll cats, and they adore me for some reason. I don't give them the time of day, but but get a dog. If you want an animal that's going to love you back, just get a dog.
No, I agree. I've got 3 dogs, and I always say that it doesn't matter how rubbish your day is. It doesn't matter if you've pissed off every single person in the world. You get home and your dogs will still love you.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like mine, she pretty much has to say goodnight to me every night. She comes over to the side of the bed, paws up, a little scratch under the chin, and then she goes to bed. I can see in the comments, Paul said, "How dare you?" I thought I got that spot on, Paul. I thought I was right. Or
maybe it's not. Maybe it's not Mango. Maybe it's another one. I kept calling them Peaches last time, and I don't think he's even got one called Peaches. I'm sure he'll He'll leave a comment in a minute.
Yeah, I know he's
The
got a
comments are a
peach
bit
throat.
delayed.
Yeah, but I could be wrong. For some reason I thought I had it in my head that he's even said that Mango wants to kill him, but he loves Mango.
I thought it was Mango that like he opens the glass and she comes darting out to his legs.
Yeah, and I tell you what, let's get another bite here, and go straight for his Crocs. And Crocs are bad anyway. So
No,
yeah.
I'm with you on that one. I don't know how he does it, to be honest. I don't.
Do you
I
know
think
what?
they
I'm
should be banned.
surprised he's still here. I'm really surprised. My phone's on do not disturb mode, but when it goes back on, he's probably going to be
he's gonna
sending
blow
for
it
me.
up. I feel bad for slagging off Paul's Crocs. If you haven't listened, go and listen to the episode with Paul. I think it was episode 3 or 4. I'm going to give him some love on this channel as well. So moving on a bit.
Yeah,
You've got baby snakes at the moment. That
I
are
do.
in
Yes.
obviously you produced those yourself. Well, you didn't personally produce them, but like through you pairing, like they were produced by you, so to speak. Do you have any plans in the future to breed, not necessarily the snakes, but anything that you're currently keeping? Because I know you're moving away from like the rack, so you're going to have less space and more like larger enclosures. So do you plan to breed anything in the future with the space and whatnot? You know, I know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's a tough one because, before I made the decision to come away from racks, I did get 2 pairings this year. I've seen them lock. We've had a clutch laid the other day. And again, to be completely honest with you, it's still a rush.
Yeah.
It just is. When you open that enclosure and there's, eggs there, you do sort of go, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
I am moving away from it. I'm not going to keep all of these babies. It is what it is. Future-wise, I think it depends. Now, one thing that is maybe a possibility, I would love to maybe attempt roughneck babies. Because they're not, very well or not very often bred in captivity.
No, definitely. It's not really something that there's a lot of surplus in pet shops either, is it?
Exactly, yeah. Everything that comes in is wild caught at the moment. Now, obviously, there's another argument in the reptile community. It's wild caught versus captive bred.
Yeah.
If you get a wild caught animal, but you captive breed it for the community, is that better? Yeah, quite possibly, because there's less animals coming out of the wild.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if there's captive animals available to buy, you should always buy those first. But if your plan is like Paul does with, I can't remember which species it is, but he's got a specific species that are wild caught, but he's only buying wild caught ones because there aren't any captive bred ones, and he plans to produce captive bred ones to stop them coming out of the wild. So
that'd be the mangroves.
Yeah,
but it's true. I mean, it just makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It does. It just adds up. Now, is it possible? I've heard that it's very tough to. Well, I mean, that's why they're not captive bred that often, because it is so difficult. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. As long as they're willing to put the time, effort, research, money, everything like that into it, there's no reason why not. Especially now that I know Ragnar is female, I just need to maybe make sure I've got the space for a male as well, and just take it from there.
So would you be looking to add a male to your collection permanently, or would you be looking to sort of like breeding line possibly, for want of a better word?
Yeah, I'd rather have one as opposed to like having it sired like on loan as such.
You don't want to stud out a male.
Yeah. I think the thing for me is I want to know what that animal is eating. I want to know the enclosure. I want to know, what sort of health it's in and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have the animal myself.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another animal to love. Like Ragnar has made me fall in love with this species. So what's better than having one? Well, 2. Do you know what I mean? So as long as I've got the space, as long as everything's safe and happy and things like that, then it's a possibility.
Yeah.
I don't know how far in the future, because obviously the possible upgrade to this enclosure will be pretty much adding a good size to it, with like a barrier in the middle, just in case they don't get along or separate when she's, laying or anything like that. So
would they be providing they get on? Your plan would be to cohabitate them for the majority of the time, if it's possible.
If it's possible, yes. Now, this is a conversation I've had, again, I know we keep talking about him, but with Paul. And I said, why is it?
Bloke. He's going to pop up a lot.
Very knowledgeable. But it's funny because I said to him in one of our last podcasts, I said, why is it that if someone cohabs cresties or leopard geckos or bearded dragons, they are the worst reptile keeper in the world? Again, I know you said you cohab, but you keep an eye on it. I said, but you will get smoke for that. It's as simple as that.
Oh, yeah,
People will
definitely.
send for you, and they probably do. But I said, but why is it someone can post a picture or video of like a trio of monitors
Yeah.
and no one bats an eyelid? Like, why is that? It's really intriguing to me. Like, if I was to put a mail in with Ragnar and put a picture up of these two roughnecks together, will I get smoke for it? Will people be there saying you're a disgusting keeper for Copab and blah, blah, blah? Or will it be in the monitor community, people going, yeah, that's cool? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's weird, but
It reminds me, I saw this, it was like a meme, like a graph thing. I can't remember
mm,
what they called it, but it was like how much knowledge you know to how much time you've been keeping. And
mm,
like for a little while, you think you know everything, and then all of a sudden, you've been keeping for longer and you
mm-hmm,
realize you know absolutely nothing. And I think it's
yeah,
that first peak of people that think they know everything because they've been
yeah,
keeping for a year or so.
mm,
Um, that are out there throwing like the shade at everyone, like, "Oh, I've read this on the internet. You shouldn't be cohabbing." Whereas monitor
yeah,
keepers generally tend to be a bit more experienced,
yeah,
generally, so they
yeah,
have like the experience of the cresties or the leopard geckos, and then they
yeah,
move on to like I hate to sort of give things like labels of like beginner and more advanced, but generally a monitor is a more advanced pet.
it is, yeah,
Um,
yeah, for
so that you've
sure.
done more research and you're a bit more forgiving in like the oh, it doesn't matter if it's got a little bit of mud in there because in the wild it would have mud or
Mm,
like that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's just a they think they know more than they do sort of situation.
yeah, yeah, and it's like they'll throw they'll throw fists and
Yeah,
go for it and without, but again, this is what I say when I say the art of conversation is lost. It's a case of, right, this is what I've read on the internet, this is what's true. I'm going to call you a disgusting human being for doing that because that's what I read.
yeah,
You know, there's a lady I've seen on one of these or in actual fact she's on a couple of pages, and I think on one of the monitor pages I think they do like a free for all Friday, you know, show us
yeah,
your animals, and she'll show this massive enclosure that's cohabbing two royal pythons. Yeah,
yeah,
it's massive, but she's cohabbing two of them, and everyone's there going, that's cool, they're looking good, you know, nice enclosure, blah blah blah. The second that goes on, you know,
a royal group.
a royal group or
Yeah,
maybe like a banter group for reptiles, that's it. There she is, hung, drawn, and quartered
yeah,
for even considering putting two royals in the same enclosure. And it's like, what do you? Where do I don't know. I don't know where you draw the line. I don't know.
yeah.
It's crazy. Like people just want their opinions out there, you know. But I don't know. It's a strange one. But the internet, is the most beautiful thing and the most disgusting thing at the same time.
I completely agree. Yeah, no, it is. It's one of I don't even know where to. I don't know. It's just one of those things where you can be right if you're talking to one person, and you can be completely wrong if you're talking to the next person.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, you have to make your own mind up, and you have to make your own informed decisions. And providing the animal's welfare comes first. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's, pardon the phrase, because obviously we're talking about the welfare of animals, but there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
so, it's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's move on. We've got to start wrapping up soon as well because my wife's going to get hungry otherwise, and that's something I don't want to deal with. So
No,
your YouTube
absolutely not.
channel, it's growing nicely at the moment. You're producing content quite a lot. So for those that are listening that haven't found your YouTube channel, tell us a little bit about it.
Mhm.
Why should people go and check it out?
Uh, a lot of it is basically showing what I consider to be progression. I'm very open and honest in what I do. Like I say, make no mistake about it. I've talked about having a rack. I've showed the rack. I've said what the plans are for that going forward. I've admitted, like I did on here, that I used to keep leopard geckos cohab with a red heat lamp. But again, if it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them.
Yeah,
So it's almost a very open sort of, here's what I'm doing, here's what I have done, here's what I want to do. Showing, you know, because sometimes I am like, so that Royal Python enclosure that I did, I've filmed all of that. That's all good. But I'm happy to admit that I completely misunderstood what a drainage layer was and what it was for.
yeah,
So what I did, I was like, well, I haven't got any drainage balls, so I'm just going to put a load of gravel in the bottom.
yeah,
And then people after that were like, well, why have you done that? That's not right. That's not what the drainage balls and things like that do. And I sort of scratched my head and went, I don't know. I just thought that was it. But
yeah,
I now know because I'm putting it out there. The thing is, if you don't, at some point, if you keep secrets and you hide stuff, eventually it's going to get out anyway. And I'd rather be open and honest about it and show what I'm doing and how I'm doing it than
Yeah.
try and hide stuff.
I
Because
think it's
then,
better to be open and honest as well, because
yeah,
like somebody might be watching your video and go, "Oh shit, yeah, I've done that," and
mm,
I can see how to make it better. And
yeah,
like
yeah,
at the end of the day, that is the end goal for everyone, isn't it? We want to
yeah,
be better at what we're doing.
yeah. It's a bit of fun. I do try to. It's sometimes quite difficult when I'm filming by myself. It's quite hard because I've got no one to bounce off of. But I try and keep them fun.
Yeah,
Trying to put some education in there, but again, I don't consider myself an expert. If I know something, I will talk about it, but I don't like to say too much in case I'm wrong. Like, and if I am wrong, I'll hold up my hands up and admit to it.
yeah,
But it's a bit of fun. It's showing off what I do have, what I'd like in the future, and things like that. I mean, one of the videos coming up hopefully soon is myself and my brother-in-law, who's the other half of Riddler Reptiles. He's not as active on it, to be fair to him.
yeah.
We're doing like a 1v1 challenge for setting up a little gargoyle gecko enclosure, because he's
Okay,
got a
cool.
few gargoyle babies. He had a couple of little spare vivs. We got some expanding foam, some cork, some bark, some some plants and things like that. And we're just doing a 1v1 little challenge for some baby gargoyles.
Well, that'd be cool, and that'll show people
Um,
2 different ways you can set up an enclosure as well.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Because you can see, like, even though we've got the same materials, the vision is different.
Yeah,
One might be better than the other to someone, but it could be the complete opposite. It's going to be one of those, like, in the comments, vote below who
yeah,
won the
definitely.
challenge. But it's quite hard. I've never actually been asked that before. I sort of do what I enjoy and hope other people enjoy it as well, basically.
Yeah, to
Because
be
I
honest, I
think
think
if
that's the
you,
best way
yeah,
to go about it. Like, of the guests I get on the podcast, I have them on because I'm interested in the topic and I want to talk about it. And I
yeah,
think, again, with the videos, if you're making stuff that either you find interesting or you want to learn about or and you want
mhm,
to share, I think that's always much more engaging with the people that are watching or listening than it is if you've gone, "Oh, right, this is trending at the moment. I'm going to make
yeah,
a video like this." And
yeah.
because people can watch it and go, "Oh, yeah," but you don't care. Like,
And that's it.
it
If
definitely
you,
comes
if
across
you
very easily.
Definitely. If you enjoy what you're doing, it's much easier to actually see that.
Yeah,
It's shown through your behaviors and your attitude in the video. If you're just doing stuff like you say because this is the in thing, or maybe I should do one of those, it's going to come across. People are going to go, he's not really into this. Whereas
no,
if I'm
definitely.
there going, right, time for a bioactive build, and I'm buzzing for this one because blah blah blah, and here's the plants I got, and here's this, people are going to go, all right, he quite enjoys that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely. And it bounces off, like, your positivity bounces off to other people watching it as well, because they'll go, "Oh, look, he's well happy doing this."
mm,
Like the leopard geckos, for example, like they seem to be happier, and he's happier with how it looks. So obviously, this is a positive thing. If you were to sit
mhm.
there and go, "All right, I'm making a bioactive enclosure because I saw it on the internet," people are going
Yeah.
to go, "Oh, why should I be? Why should I do that?"
Yeah, yeah, because it's clearly not bringing him any joy, and there's no point to
Exactly.
it.
Like if I sat, like, don't get me wrong, I have got notes next to me, but if I sat here with a dead list of questions and just asked you the questions,
Hmm.
and then we didn't have the conversation because I wasn't interested, it would be
Yeah,
rubbish podcast, wouldn't it? So it's
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Like, I'll ask you. I've only got like 8 questions written down just to
yeah,
jog
yeah.
my memory, and then
Like a
you'll
guideline
say,
as such.
"Yeah, exactly." So you'll say
Yeah,
something, and then my brain goes, "Oh yeah, I wonder. Oh, let's go that way."
yeah, yeah.
But I do have to pull myself back in occasionally because otherwise we'll be here for like 3.5 hours, and I'll get in trouble.
That's the danger of it as well. I mean, like I say, I mean, I'd like to think that because I'm so open and honest about stuff, and I am willing to talk, sometimes these conversations can go on. Like,
Yeah, it's not a bad
I'll
thing
talk
though.
for
Like,
days.
I'm thoroughly enjoying myself.
Yeah,
But I know I did say we've got to move towards wrapping it up. So I do have a few more, and then we will wrap it up
yeah.
because
No, that's cool,
I don't
mate.
want to upset anyone.
Yeah.
So give us some shout outs if you want to. Is there anybody in the community that you would like to give a shout out to? It doesn't have to be one person. It doesn't have to be any people if there's too many and you don't want to miss anybody out. But this is
Mhm.
your opportunity to shout out anybody if you want to.
Well, firstly, I'll shout you out because obviously I appreciate
Thank you very
you
much.
asking me to come on. I appreciate the time on here, so thank you for that.
Oh, just don't
Um,
shout out Paul again because he's had enough time on here.
he has had far too much time on here. I'm not shouting out Paul's monitors across YouTube, Instagram, and that counts, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Also, to be fair, someone who I've spoken to through Paul as well was Mr. Will Exotic. He's a young lad out in the States. I'm not sure if you've seen him, but he lives, breathes everything monitors like that. I don't want to call him a kid. Like I think he's a teenager, to be fair. But
Yeah.
the adoration of the species that he has comes across in his videos, and it is really nice to see.
Very cool. It's nice to see like a young. I feel like I'm putting people down when I say it, but it's nice to see younger people getting into the hobby and like giving a shit as well.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. This is a tough one, to be fair.
It is hard, and I don't ever tell people I'm going to ask them. So it's nice because otherwise they'll sit there and they'll have a list of people, and you don't get the genuine. Oh yeah, they were really good. And don't get me wrong, it's also very difficult sometimes because there's probably like 30 people in your head, and you don't want to miss one person out.
Yeah, some people actually that we were speaking to before the conference, but met at the conference. Dynamite Reptiles, they specialize in Euromastics. Lovely people.
Cool.
Me and Jacob were chatting to them for quite a while. Really nice people, to be fair. Enjoyed spending some time with them. There's quite a few, to be fair. There's a guy, Gary's TNA Exotics, I think it is. I don't think he's that active on things like YouTube and Instagram, but he turns up to our videos every single time. Nice. And he's there, he's supporting, and he loves what he does. Same as there's a chap called Baum or Baum, again, not very active himself, but will show up every single time and shout us out and like and comment on videos and things like that. So
that's brilliant. That's what you want.
That's it. You can see you're almost building this little community of people that appreciate you for what you're doing and things like that. And it warms you, to be fair. Like, it's
definitely.
Nice.
You're making the videos and stuff on YouTube too because you want to, but it's also very nice to have that, like the recognition and people coming back every week or week on a video on video saying, I'm really enjoying it. Like, because I think sometimes you can get a bit burnt out and you go, I don't really maybe I should just pack it all in. And then that person's popped up on the last video and said, I've really enjoyed that. And even if you're not feeling very creative, you'll go, they're probably waiting for something. So you find a motivation and it sort of ticks you over until you find you're fully motivated again, because nobody stays 100% motivated all the time.
That's it. And then the last one I'll go with for now is Longfield Reptiles and Aquatics, who has also been in the chat. Michael, shout out to you as well. Well, I probably shouldn't, because the thing is, he keeps teasing me with his baby pink tongue skinks. I really want one. I haven't got the room for one, but he keeps sending. He even tagged me one. He said, "This one's for Riddler Reptiles. Hope you like these little babies." And I'm just there going, "Oh God, I want one."
Yeah, I'm not allowed skinks. My wife hates them. She doesn't want anything else.
Oh, really?
She doesn't like skinks. Blue tongues, pink tongues. Should they give her the creeps?
Okay.
So that's fair enough. That just won't happen, unfortunately. But I can't complain because we've got a small zoo at home, so
Yeah.
It's all quite fun. Right. Last thing for the podcast. I like to finish on something I call the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Shame. Basically, it's designed so if you're a new keeper, you're walking into what I sort of see it as a museum. So you walk into the Hall of Shame first, and in this museum is an item or a piece of advice that every single podcast guest previous has given you that you should avoid as a reptile keeper. So, for example, we've had red bulbs were put in the Hall of Shame. We've had, what did last week? Last week they put in parrot toys from AliExpress because they're a bit crap and cheap. So that sort of thing. And then once you go through the Hall of Shame, you're into the Hall of Fame. Same concept, but it's lots of really good products. So again, everyone has said, you should use this or use this piece of advice as a new keeper. So would like to just walk you through the Hall of Shame and the Hall of Fame before you leave, mate. So what would you add to the Hall of Shame first, please?
See, this one, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but it's the first thing that came to mind. And it's an entire brand and a website that I use or have used in the past quite often. I've not really had many positives with them. And unfortunately, but the problem is they're cheap.
Yeah.
Someone could completely disagree with me here.
That doesn't matter. This is your opinion solely.
Yeah, right, so unfortunately, I've had bad experiences with Internet Reptile.
Okay, there we go.
It's
your advice is to avoid it.
It would. I mean, the pros for them are that they are one of the cheaper ones. The cons are I've had things turn up, or not turn up.
Yeah.
And then I've said, can I have it sent out to me? Sorry, we've issued you a refund. And I'm like, but now I have to repay for postage and packaging for that one item again.
And you got to wait for the refund to appear.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had some bad experiences with them. And then sometimes, so what I'll do instead is I'll go for like other reptile based ones. I think there's one, Northampton Reptile Centre's quite good.
Yeah, I use them. They're quite good.
I use them. They seem pretty spot on. But
Cool.
yeah, so unfortunately for them, if any of their employees or anyone's listening, it is what it is. But
yeah, no, it's your personal experience.
Yeah.
And if it's been crap, then it's been rubbish. Right.
Yeah.
So we've done the Hall of Shame. We're going to walk into the Hall of Fame now. So what is something? It can be a piece of advice, an item, a product, a website, anything that you would say to a new keeper. This is really good. Go and get one, or look into using it.
That's a good one as well, to be fair. Look into using it. What would you use? LED lighting and again, before he says this is my idea, it was his idea
I am
for
going
me.
to point out, Paul did say put LED lighting in the Hall of Fame as well.
He did, yeah. Has he already done that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can double it up.
Let me try and be a bit original here, but yeah.
So whilst you're thinking, so we've had, off the top of my head, I've had full spectrum LEDs like jungle doors and stuff. That was from Paul. Last week we had they were called clip cups, I think, which is a type of bird food cup that clips in so the birds can't pick them up and throw them away. I know also another one off the top of my head. Somebody said, don't think you know everything and always take advice. So listen to other people all the time. Don't necessarily think you know everything all at once, which is like a backhanded sort of yes and no, but it works.
Yeah. Is this advice I can give or that I've been given?
It's completely up to you. It's just something positive.
Something that I will live and die by is it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're willing to learn from them. That's what I'll go with.
That's a really good one for this.
You're not going to get it perfect every single time, if ever. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There might not even be any such thing as perfection. But if you've done things wrong, or maybe not to the extent that it should be done, if you hold your hands up and go, I messed up, but I've learned from it and I've worked on it and now I'm in a better position. There was nothing wrong with that mistake in the first place, unless something's died from it. Which, but even
that's
so,
worst case. But
even so, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're willing to learn from them.
No, I think that's absolutely spot on. To be honest, I think no one can go into not necessarily reptile keeping, but any hobby at all and expect to be bang on first time. Like, you're going to make mistakes, and like you say, it's better to hold your hands up and go, oh, I've made a mistake. And even if you don't know how to solve it, if you go, oh, I've made a mistake, someone else will be able to help you as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, even if people come for you and say, why did you do that? You're a horrible human being. You should never keep reptiles. Well, at least you've not kept it a secret and hidden it. You're actively asking for help. Do you know what I mean? There is nothing wrong with asking for help. In actual fact, I think it's worse when someone asks for help and then they get shot down for it. Because that person's never going to ask for any advice again. And the only people that are going to suffer are them and obviously their animals potentially as well.
Yeah, that's why I tend to stay off Facebook groups.
Yeah.
I sit there in the background, but I just leave them to do whatever they want because Facebook's just a cesspit, unfortunately.
That's the best way of describing it. It's a literal cesspit.
Yeah, it's cool. So that's the end of the podcast pretty much, mate. So thank you very much for coming on. Before you do disappear, this is your opportunity to just, for want of a better term, plug yourself. So where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, but I'm not that active on TikTok anymore. I try, but I just can't. I don't have the enthusiasm to do so. Instagram fairly often. YouTube I'm trying to do once a week. Facebook, it only uploads when I upload a picture to Instagram and straight to Facebook. But yeah, I'm across pretty much all social media platforms. I'm always available. Feel free to come and say hello.
Just need to search Riddler Reptiles.
Riddler Reptiles,
that's platforms,
probably a good one to go with as well. Yeah, you can find me at Riddler Reptiles. But so I'm across all things like that, and always open for a chat.
Fantastic. Right, well, that is the end of that podcast. So thank you very much again for coming on. I really enjoyed this chat, mate.
Likewise.
We could have gone for a longer time.
Definitely.
It is what it is. So maybe we'll get you, like I said, we'll get you and Paul on as round 2 together. If I'm feeling really brave and up for that. Yeah, no, it's been brilliant. So right, I'm going to say goodbye to you, and then I'm just going to wrap this up. So again, thank you very much, and I'll
Excellent. Cheers,
talk to
mate.
you soon, mate.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Cheers.
having me. Cheers. Bye.
Cool. Right. Well, that was Andrew from Riddler Reptiles. His info will be in the description below on the video and on all the Spotify and whatnot. So thank you very much for joining me again. I just want to reiterate again, as it's the end of the podcast. If you're looking on screen now, you can see you can win a 12-month digital subscription to Exotics Keeper magazine. All you need to do is on the YouTube video below, go to the comments and drop a comment with an animal fact. It can be what we had winning this one so far. So we've had, I can't remember off the top of my head. It can be as simple as dogs have 4 legs, cats have 2 eyes, whales live in the sea. Like, drop a comment and I will pick one. And I'm doing this every episode, so you'll get a chance to win a 12-month subscription, which is pretty cool. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, you can follow my personal account, or my reptile account on Instagram, which is @BensBalls. If you want to keep up to date with the podcast, future guests, and all that sort of stuff, and occasional giveaways, that is @ReptiChat on Instagram. If you'd like to support the podcast, please go and give us a like, click that thumbs up button, share it, tell your mates, drop a comment below. If you're on any of the audio only platforms, so Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, all that sort of stuff, you can give the podcast a rating as well, and that is always massively appreciated. If you want to support the podcast just that little bit more, there is a link below to a website called Buy Me a Coffee, and that is where you can donate the cost of a coffee to the podcast, and it just helps the running and upkeep of the podcast, because it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but that doesn't matter. If you have, like I said at the beginning, if you have a specific animal or a topic you'd like to hear discussed, or perhaps you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, drop a comment or DM me on Instagram, and we can make that happen as well, which will be cool, because there's always lots of people doing lots of stuff with animals, and I don't always know who they are, and I'd like to. So yeah, let me know. But that is it for today. So until next time, which will be in a fortnight, I'll see you then. Cheers. Bye bye.